Okay, Mr. Chair, we are now live.
Good, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, members of the committee, consultants, applicants, members of the public. I will now call the Committee of Adjustment to order for April 7th, 2021. As this meeting is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I will go over some rules and procedure for the benefit of the members and the viewing public. So this meeting is being held or is being streamed live via the City of Brantford YouTube account. All members of the committee will be muted upon entering the meeting and throughout when they are not speaking in order to reduce background noise. All webcams for committee members shall be turned on throughout the meeting. If a member needs to leave their seat, please leave the camera on so that we recognize that you are away. Staff will be requested to join the video should they need to answer questions of any members. Movers and seconders of motion shall be indicated by raising your hand on camera, and the chair will call out who the mover and seconder are. All members of the committee participating via online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands, and a recorded vote will be taken by the clerk. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are participating as well via Zoom or telephone. All persons wishing to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register by 9 a.m. Any delegations received in written format have been provided to the committee and will form part of the meeting record. In the event that a connection or service interruption occurs that does affect quorum for the Committee of Adjustment, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes in order to allow the committee to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. So at this time, I will ask the clerk to take attendance.
Okay, hello, everybody. We have received regrets from Tara Gaskin and Lee Reiner, so I will go through the rest of you. Greg Kempa.
Here.
Dan Demesniak.
Here.
Michael Bodner.
Here.
Virginia Kershaw. Oh, she's here. Christina Brooks.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. I'll ask at this time if any committee members have any conflict of interest for any of the items on the agenda this evening. I see none. So we will get into kind of our typical procedures now. So this meeting is held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss minor variance, consent, and severance applications and give members of the public the opportunity to ask questions, express concerns, or provide comment, either in support or against the application. Each hearing is generally dealt with in accordance to the order that they appear on the agenda. In the event that the hearing is not completed on this date, it will be adjourned to a later date, at which time the committee may hear further submissions. At the conclusion of each hearing, this committee will make a decision on each application. The names of those individuals who speak on any item tonight will appear within the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing to receive further notice of any hearing, including a copy of the committee's decision, please contact the city's clerk department. Minor variance decisions are final if there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision, and consent decisions are final if there are no appeals 20 days after the notice of the decision has been issued. So the order of delegations will go as follows. We will have the applicants or agent join us on screen to present introduce themselves and present the details of their application. And we'll have an opportunity for the committee members to ask questions of the applicant or agent. Then we'll have staff join us to present the details of the staff report and their recommendation, again, followed by an opportunity for questions from the members. Then we will open up the public portion of the hearing. So any members who had members of the public who had registered to speak to any items that would be the opportunity for that type of discussion. And then we will have one final opportunity for questions of clarification from the committee to staff or to the applicant. And if the committee is comfortable, we will certainly make a decision on the application. So rolling into our first item on the agenda, this is a minor variance application for 50 St. Paul Avenue. We have our applicants, Ralph and Teresa. Welcome. I'll just remind you to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
You hear us, sir?
Yep, perfect.
Good evening.
I'll just get you to introduce yourselves and state your address and the reason for your application.
Sure. I'm Ralph, my wife, Teresa. We're operating a numbered company called 26876 Limited. The property in question, that's the address you want, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the property in question is at 50 St. Paul Avenue in Brantford. What we have in mind to do there, if the committee allows it, is to build a small addition on the second story on top of an already existing first story addition. It's a small addition that measures 13 feet by 20 feet. So it's not large, but it's just a small addition that we'd like to put on the second story. What it does, it makes the second story the same square footage as the first. The building is operated as a 2-unit dwelling. There's a 2-bedroom unit on the main floor, and there's a 2-bedroom unit on the second floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have any questions from the committee to the applicants? I see no questions, so we will invite staff to join us and present the details of the staff report and the recommendation.
Good evening. Chair, members of the committee, planning staff have received a minor variance application for 50 St. Paul Avenue. The property is located at the southwest corner of St. Paul Avenue and Wilkes Street, with approximate area of 455 square meters. The lands are designated residential area low density in the official plan and are zoned residential type 1C zone in the zoning bylaw. So here's the existing building, and then a few more photos of the existing building. The applicant is proposing to construct an addition on the second story of the building that would enlarge the existing accessory dwelling unit. To facilitate the proposed addition, the applicant requires a relief from section 6.32.3 of the zoning bylaw to permit an accessory dwelling unit located at or above grade to be larger than 50% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling. With the proposed addition, the accessory dwelling unit's gross floor area would equal 100% of the principal dwelling unit's gross floor area. Now here's just an image of the elevation proposed. In order for a minor variance to be approved, the application must meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act, of Section 45 of the Planning Act. It is the opinion of planning staff that the minor variance requested for an increase in maximum gross floor area of an accessory dwelling unit over 50% of the principal dwelling is minor in nature, as there will be limited to no adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. The existing accessory dwelling unit is already above the maximum gross floor area in its legal recognized situation, and the additional relief sought represents a modest increase. The minor variance is appropriate for the development and use of the lands, as the proposed addition will increase the amount of living space for the future occupants while contributing to a mix of housing options within the neighborhood. The minor variance meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw by facilitating development for a permitted use. It is worth noting that the proposed development would not require minor variance if it were located in the abutting residential conversion zone. It is also worth noting that if an accessory dwelling unit, if the accessory dwelling unit was located below grade or in an accessory dwelling, there would be no cap on the gross floor area. It is planning staff's opinion that the proposal is compatible with adjacent development and meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Section 18.11.2 of the official plan lists criteria for minor variance applications, including if adequate provision is made for vehicular access and off-street parking on a lot, and that building coverage is not excessive so that adequate landscaping can be provided. Planning staff are satisfied that the general intent of the official plan is maintained and that the proposed addition will not extend beyond the existing building footprint and therefore will not impede on landscaping or vehicular access or an increase in building lot coverage. Adequate provisions have been made for off-street parking as the parking space is provided for each existing dwelling unit. Staff is of the opinion that the proposed minor variance meets the four tests of section 45(1) of the Planning Act. And here's just a floor plan. And then this is the area of public notification, and no public comments were received by staff. In conclusion, planning staff recommend that application A13-2021 regarding 50 St. Paul Avenue be approved. Thank you, and I can take any questions.
Okay, any questions from the committee to staff? Seeing no questions. So at this point, I will formally open the public portion of the hearing this evening. And I'll just confirm with our clerks that we have no members of the public who have registered to speak.
That's correct. We have not received any.
Okay, so with that being said, I can formally close the public portion of the hearing. And I will ask the committee at this point if there are any further questions of clarification to the applicants or to staff. And if there are none, I will ask if there's a committee member who would like to move a motion. Greg?
Mr. Chair, I'd move that application A13/2021 be approved as shown in the agenda.
And a seconder? Michael? Is there any discussion on that motion? No discussion, so we can have the clerk call the vote.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Virginia Kershaw, Michael Bodnar, Gregory Kempa, Christina Brooks, and Dan Nemesniak. Thank you. That carried on a recorded vote of 5-0.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Moving on into item number 2 on our agenda. This is another minor variance application. Application A14-2021 for 138 Chestnut Avenue. The agent, Mr. Phillips, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application made by Mayberry Homes to create a secondary unit within the existing building. The lot area for the lot is slightly deficient. As such, we've submitted for a minor variance. We've read the planning staff report, concur with the all the information within it and the recommendation, and I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions from the committee to Mr. Phillips? No questions. So we will have staff join us again, present the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A minor variance application has been received for 138 Chestnut Avenue. The property is located on the east side of Chestnut Avenue. The lot was created through a consent application B32 2017. The dwelling unit under construction was approved through site plan application SPC 2720. The applicant is now proposing to convert this single detached dwelling into a converted dwelling with a total of 2 units. In order to facilitate the development as proposed, the applicant is seeking relief from section 7.8.2.1.3 of the zoning bylaw in order to permit a lot area of 270 square meters for a converted dwelling. Here's an image of the house under construction. The property is designated residential area low density in the city's official plan and zoned flooding residential conversion zone in the zoning bylaw. When evaluating the merits of a minor variance application, the Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied that the 4 tests of the planning of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act have been met. To be approved, a minor variance must be minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land, and the general intent and purpose of both the zoning bylaw and official plan must be maintained. The decrease in minimum lot area for a converted dwelling at this site is considered minor in nature, as it is not expected to have an adverse impact on adjacent properties. The application is desirable for the development and use of the lands, as the lot will still create the lot will still provide area for off-street parking and amenity space. The proposed infill development makes efficient use of the land and the existing building stock in the city of Brantford. Section 7.8.2.1.3 of the zoning bylaw establishes this minimum lot area requirement to ensure that the lot is large enough to accommodate the parking, the dwelling, and the amenity space. It is planning staff's opinion that the lot area is adequate to accommodate all of these features, and are of the opinion that the proposed variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. The official plan encourages a wide range of housing types to accommodate the anticipated population in Brantford. Section 6.2.3.1 of the official plan encourages residential intensification and affordable housing. It is of the opinion of planning staff that the proposal will maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. Here's a map of the area of public notification. No comments were received from the member of the public. A site visit was conducted on April 1st, 2021. Upon completion of the site visit and review of the applicable policies, planning staff are supportive of the application. The minor variance will facilitate appropriate infill development that makes efficient use of the land. This type of infill development represents good land use planning that is encouraged by the Planning Act, the PPS, the Growth Plan, and the City of Brantford's official plan. For reasons that I mentioned throughout the presentation, this minor variance, in the opinion of staff, satisfies the criteria of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and planning staff recommend that application A14-2021 be approved. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Questions for staff? Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The proposal calls this a converted dwelling. Can you help me with the definition of converted dwelling?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. A converted dwelling is a permitted use within certain zones within the city of Brantford. The converted dwelling use is where an existing building, either that had 1 unit or more, is then converted into a dwelling unit with more than 1 dwelling unit within it. So it's a building that's been converted from an existing residential use to include an additional residential use. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, kind of, yes. So if I can continue then, as I look at the picture, it looks like a single family dwelling. Had this not been moved into 2 units, would this application still be necessary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the minor variance is based on lot area for a converted dwelling. This section, it requires 360 square meters for a converted dwelling, and a minor variance would not have been required for a single detached, as it has a lower threshold for lot area.
So you can put a larger single family dwelling on a piece of land than you can a converted dwelling.
A converted dwelling requires a larger lot area than a single detached dwelling.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I'll just have one, just a follow up to Greg's thought there. Can you just tie the previous application it was an accessory dwelling unit, and now we have a converted dwelling. Can you just identify the differences between the two?
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. The accessory dwelling unit policies are specific to most residential zones, save and except for the R2 zone, R3 zone, and the residential conversion zone. So under the residential conversion zone, additional units can be added, but it's considered either a converted dwelling in the situation where the building is already existing and you're adding an additional unit, or a duplex or a triplex, which is built originally as that use with multiple units in it. So this zone only permits converted dwellings and does not permit accessory dwelling units. So that's why there's a difference between the two. The first one was zoned R1C and this one's zoned RC. So they are different based on what is permitted in each zone.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that's helpful as we start to see more accessory dwelling units moving forward. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, so I will formally open the public portion of the hearing. And as staff mentioned, there were no public concerns identified through the circulation, and I'll just confirm with our clerk again that no members of the public have registered to speak to this item.
That is correct. We have had no registrants.
Perfect, thank you. So I will formally close the public portion of the hearing. I'll go back to the committee and just ask if there's any questions of clarification to the applicant or to staff. I see none, so I'll ask if there's a committee member who's ready to move a motion. Chris?
I move that application A14/2021 be approved as noted in the staff minutes.
Very good. And a seconder? Virginia? Any discussion on that motion? Greg?
Mr. Speaker, I'm kind of at a loss to understand how a building can get so far into construction and then all of a sudden somebody makes a decision. If I look at the picture halfway through the construction, all of a sudden, well, let's make it a converted building, and now coming back for a change to, or coming back to this committee for that minor variance change. It just feels like we've lost the steps there, that maybe this is something that ought to have been dealt with prior to construction having begun. And so, thanks.
Okay, thanks for the comments. Any Anyone else have anything else to add? Okay, seeing none, if we're ready, we can have the clerk call the vote.
Okay, everyone raise your hands, please, and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Virginia Kershaw, Christina Brooks, Michael Bodnar, Dan Nemesniak. All those opposed? Gregory Kempa. Thank you. That carried on a recorded vote of 4-1.
Okay, next item on our agenda, it's a consent and minor variance application. B10 2021 and A16 2021 for 349 to 363 Henry Street. Do we have a agent here this evening?
My apologies. I believe it was Robert Phillips. And
For
Mr.
Henry?
Phillips, are you still there?
I am, but for
Oh,
Henry
wait.
Street? Wasn't this an application? I'm familiar a bit with the application.
I may have scrolled too far.
Yes, I believe we are actually on 57 Charlotte Street.
That makes a little bit more sense.
Okay.
Makes more-
Uh, let me start over. So very similar. This is another consent and minor variance application. This one is B9 and A15 for 57 Charlotte Street. Mr.
Thank you,
Phillips,
Mr.
you're here to speak to this one?
This one I'm a little more prepared to talk about. This is an application by the Brant Historical Society to sever a lot across the street from the City Hall parking lot to facilitate a new home for the Crystal Cottage Heritage Building. The property that the Historical Society and this site were originally two separate parcels of land, but because of ownership have merged in title. We're trying to re-sever the original land holding to provide a new home for the Crystal Cottage. The Crystal Cottage is a unique kind of building located over on Market Street, where within the walls, they've actually got bottles implanted in the brick. And it's a brick bearing building, so it's kind of unique. Anyway, they're going to move it over to this site. And it was going to be a new home. We are working through various approvals on this to accommodate that relocation. And through the site plan approval process that we've been working with the city on, they requested that the building be moved up closer to the street, which resulted in a minor variance. It's a little bit of a unique lot because it slopes off significantly as you go to the back going down the hill. So there was lots of discussions about where the parking was going to be located and items such as that. Again, we've read the planning staff report, see the conditions of approval, fully supportive, and hope we can gain the approval of the committee tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Any questions from the committee to the agent? Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the agent, did you have to go through the Heritage Committee for this?
Specifically, I did not, but I know that the owner of the Crystal Cottage had to go through the Heritage Committee. There's been lots of discussions about moving it. There's a transfer of heritage easements, designations from the current location to the new location. It's a quite complicated process. So, did I have to go through the Heritage Committee? No. But did they? they've had significant conversations with various city staffs about the historical nature.
Okay.
Michael?
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Chair, to the agent. Is it something that you have to get prior approval from another committee before you get approval from our committee?
No. You know, I'm going to say that heritage approvals are sort of in place as part of this severance because it is a commercial. We have to do site plan approval on the development, which we are in the middle of. And everything's kind of been holding based on the approvals of this committee to create the lot again, and also to establish the actual location of the building on the site so that we can finish those other approvals. Hope that helps.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I don't have any more questions.
Do any other committee members have any questions for Mr. Phillips? Seeing none, we will have staff join us to present the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning staff have received an application for consent and minor variance for the lands municipally addressed as 53 and 57 Charlotte Street. The subject property is located on the northeast corner of Charlotte Street and Wellington Street. The lands were inadvertently merged due to them being in the same ownership. The applicant is proposing to sever the previously existing lot at 53 Charlotte Street to facilitate the relocation of a heritage designated building known as the Crystal Cottage. Here's an aerial photo of the lot. Here's a photo of the vacant parcel at 53 Charlotte, where the building will be relocated. Here is a site plan for the severance. So the severed lot will have a lot area of 550 square meters, and the retained will have a proposed area of 1,630 square meters. The applicant is seeking relief from section 9.2.2.10.5 in order to permit a front yard of 6.5 meters. The proposed severed lands are located on a corner lot where the conveyance of a daylight triangle is requested as a condition of approval. With this, the measurement of the front yard is then taken from the 90-degree angle of the center of the interior edge of the daylight triangle to the edge of the building. The current front yard is based on an established front building line, so this is changing it to be 6.5 meters requirement. And here is an image of the existing Crystal Cottage. The proposed and retained lands, the retained lands currently are occupied by the Brant Museum and Archives, and the severed lands are currently vacant and will, if approved, will house the Crystal Cottage. The vacant lands also have a significant slope towards Wellington Street on the south property line, and a slope towards the east property line as well. The lands are designated core commercial in the official plan and zoned fringe core commercial in the zoning bylaw. The Planning Act sets the standard which provincial and local interest policies and goals are implemented. Section 5124 of the Planning Act lists criteria that the Committee of Adjustment must have regard for when considering consent applications for approval. These criteria include if the plan conforms to the official plan, the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lot, the adequacy of utilities and municipal services. Section 18.9.2 of the official plan also lists criteria for consent applications, including if a severance is for the purpose of infilling, that no extension or improvement of municipal services are required, and if the lot has a frontage on a public road. The consent application is for the purpose of recreating a previously existing lot. The retained parcel can adequately accommodate the existing museum use. The applicant is proposing to relocate the heritage designated structure on the severed lands, which meets all minimum lot dimension requirements of the C2 zone. Sorry. The approval of the minor variance application of A15-2021 is not required to create the lot, and as such is not included as a condition of the consent. There are properties within the similar area. There are properties within the area that have a similar lot width and area adjacent to the subject lands. The creation of this new lot will not restrict development on any adjacent property. The redevelopment of the site is currently being reviewed through site plan application SPC 26-2020. The site plan control process is providing the city and the ward councilors with the opportunity to review the functionality of the site, the placement of the building, and the driveway location to ensure its compatibility and integration within the neighborhood. Planning staff have given regard from Section 51-24 of the Planning Act and are satisfied that the application is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area and will not result in any adverse impacts on the surrounding properties. In regards to the minor variance, the Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied that the 4 tests of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act have been met when evaluating the merits of a minor variance application. To be recommended for approval, a minor variance must maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw, be minor in nature and desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land. It is the opinion of planning staff that the minor variance to permit the reduced front yard is minor in nature. The variance will not result in any adverse impact or restrict any development on any adjacent property. The minor variance is desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land, as the reduced front yard will place the designated heritage building in a more prominent location. The reduced front yard meets the general intent of the zoning and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as it will still be within close proximity to the established building line and contributes to a continuous street wall along Charlotte Street, pursuant to the City of Brantford Urban Design Manual. Section 18.11.2 of the official plan lists criteria for the minor variance applications, including if an appropriate provision is made for vehicular access and off-street parking on a lot, and that the building coverage is not excessive so that adequate landscaping can be provided. Planning staff are satisfied that the general intent of the official plan is maintained, as the reduction will still allow for adequate landscaping to be provided and will not impede vehicular access or off-street parking on the lot. Staff is of the opinion that the proposed minor variance meets the 4 tests of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. A site inspection was completed on March 24, 2021. Upon the completion of this site visit and review of the applicable policies, planning staff are supportive of the applications. Having regard for matters under Section 51(24) of the Planning Act, staff is satisfied that the consent application is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area. The proposal will contribute to a commercial development on an underutilized lot in accordance with the applicable planning policy in the PPS, growth plan, and official plan. The application is also consistent with policies under Section 18.9.2 of the official plan. It is planning staff's opinion that the variances satisfy the 4 tests as defined under the Planning Act. The application is minor in nature, appropriate development and use of the lands, meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. Planning staff recommend that applications B09-2021 and A15-2021 be approved, subject to the conditions attached in Appendix A of the report 2021-297. Thank you. And this is just an image of the site plan. Sorry. And it illustrates that setback from the daylight triangle as required, as that is the required measurement from the building department. And here's an area of public notification, and no public comments were received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the committee to staff? Seeing none, so I'll open the public portion of the of the hearing for this item. And again, as staff mentioned, no public comments were received during the circulation, and I'll just confirm with our clerk that no public members of the public have registered to speak to this item.
Yes, that's correct. No members of the public have registered.
Okay. So with that being said, I can formally close the public portion. And I'll give the committee another opportunity for any questions of clarification. Just one to Mr. Phillips. I don't know if you know, is there a targeted move date?
I don't think we can move it fast enough. The building's actually sitting up on the beams right now at the original location. Obviously, we got an appeal period to go through and finalize site plan approval.
It's going to be quite the spectacle.
It will be, just because of the nature of the building.
Cool. Okay. Any questions, further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I will have or ask for a motion. Greg?
Mr. Chair, I would move that both applications B 09/2021 and A 15/2021 both be approved as shown in the agenda.
And a seconder? Virginia? Any discussion on that motion? No discussion. We'll have the clerks call the vote.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Virginia Kershaw, Michael Bodnar, Gregory Kempa, Christina Brooks, Dan Demesniak. That carried on a recorded vote of 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night. The next item on the agenda. This is consent application and minor variance application B10 and A16 for 349 363 Henry Street. Do we have an agent present for this one?
We do. She is on her way in at the moment. There she is.
There you go. Carolyn, welcome. I'll just have you unmute yourself and state your name and who you're representing and the details of your application.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn Johnson from Underwood, Iron and Johnson Law. We're representing the owner of the two properties, 1077824 Ontario Limited. This is similar to an earlier one. These were two separate industrial lots on Henry Street. My client bought the first one in 2003, built his building, bought the adjoining land in 2015, built another industrial building separate from his. However, they merged in title, so we just need to get them separated again so that they can be dealt with separately. One is in the process of being purchased and just waiting for this. And so it's simply a separation to return it to two industrial lots that were originally created as two separate lots. There's a fair number of complications, which we've worked through with the planning department, and I'm sure Alexandra will explain those much better than I can. We've worked out an agreement on conditions to address all of those. So hopefully there's no new issues and we can proceed. I'd be happy to take any questions, particularly after perhaps Alexandra has explained in better detail all of the lovely conditions and so on.
Okay, great. Any questions for the agent at this time? Seeing none, we will have our staff join us and present the report.
Thank you. Apologize, my slideshow is not progressing. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Planning staff have received a consent and minor variance application for the lands municipally addressed as 349, 355, 361, and 363 Henry Street. The subject lands are located on the north side of Henry, east of Adams Boulevard. And here's an aerial photo of the two buildings and the lot. The property is designated general industrial in the official plan and zoned general industrial zone in the zoning bylaw. The lot municipally addressed as 349 and 355 Henry Street was consolidated with the lot at 361 and 363 Henry Street as part of the development of the lot. The lot is now considered an industrial mall for the purposes of the zoning bylaw. The lot at 349 and 355 Henry Street was developed prior to, but a recent site plan application amendment was approved in 2019 for an addition to the building. The applicant is now proposing to sever the lots into two in order to sell the severed lands. The proposed lot area for the severed lands is approximately 8,778 square meters, and the retained lot will be 8,229 square meters. This is based on the proposed draft survey. So here's just an image of the one lot, or the proposed severed or retained lot, proposed severed lot. And here is the draft survey. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant is seeking relief for both the retained and severed lots from section 6.23.4.1 of the zoning bylaw. This section of the zoning bylaw refers to loading space maneuverability, egress, and ingress, and states that movements must be contained on each individual lot. The applicant is seeking relief from this section in order to allow the portion of the loading space vehicular movements to take place on the severed lot in favor of the retained lot, as well as the retained lot in favor of the severed lot. A blanket easement across both lots will be required as a condition. The Planning Act sets a standard which provincial and local interests and policies and goals are implemented. Section 5124 of the Planning Act lists the criteria that the Committee of Adjustment must have regard for when considering a consent application for approval. These criteria include if the plan conforms to the official plan, the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lot, and the adequacy of the utilities and municipal services are there. Section 18.9.2 of the official plan also lists criteria for consent applications and includes if no extension or improvement of municipal services are required, and that the lots have access to a public road. The consent application is for the purpose of selling the severed lands. The retained lot can adequately accommodate the existing industrial building and associated loading spaces. The proposed severed lot can also adequately accommodate the existing building and proposed addition, which was recently approved through the site plan control process. The buildings and lot are considered and will continue to be considered as an industrial mall. The definition of an industrial mall provides that an industrial mall can be held in multiple ownerships for more than one lot, and that the total area of the property shall be deemed to be a lot in regards to the regulations of the zoning bylaw. The parking will continue to be shared between the lots as permitted through the definition of an industrial mall. However, this will need to be addressed through a parking agreement and blanket easements over both properties as required by section 6.18.3.2 of the zoning bylaw, as the parking will now be located over two lots in the M2 zone. This will also be included as and addressed as a condition of the consent if approved. The proposed lots meet the requirements for lot area of the M2 zone and are similar to existing industrial lots within the immediate area. The creation of this new lot will not restrict the development on any adjacent properties. Any redevelopment of either site will be subject to all city requirements, including site plan control and other Planning Act applications if required. The Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied that the four tests of planning, Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, have been met when evaluating the merits of a minor variance application. To be recommended for approval, a minor variance must maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. be minor in nature and desirable appropriate development of the use of the land. It is the opinion of planning staff that the minor variance is considered minor in nature, as it will not result in any adverse impact or restrict the development on any adjacent property. The minor variance will permit the loading space maneuvering, ingress and egress on the retained lot for the severed lot and vice versa, which will be accompanied by blanket easements and agreements over both lots, which will allow for the loading spaces to continue to function as existing. The blanket easements, again, are a condition of this consent application and will be required to be registered on a title if approved. The subject lands will also continue to function as an industrial mall in regards to parking, lot access, and planning staff believe that this is desirable and appropriate development and use of the land. The proposed variance is in keeping with the existing situation of the subject lands and will be beneficial in providing additional ingress-egress for the loading spaces on the retained lands to continue to have access off of Adams Boulevard through the severed lands. This meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan by resulting in 2 lots which will continue to adequately function as an industrial mall. Staff is of the opinion that the proposed minor variance meets the 4 tests of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act and recommend that applications A16 be approved, A1621 be approved, and application B10 2021 be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the report and the decision. Thank you. Also, planning staff would just like to note, here's the area of public notification. No comments were received. Planning staff would also like to note that it was completely in error that our Joe Muto, the manager of development planning, and my signatures were not included on the signature line. We are supportive of the application. It was just a complete error. Sorry.
I was going to ask about that. Just kidding. No. Good. Thank you for your presentation. I'll ask if the committee members have any questions of clarification to staff. No. Yep. Michael?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask the applicant if the applicant has any concerns with the conditions.
No, we don't. We're satisfied with all of them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, applicant.
Very good. Any further questions at this time? Seeing none, so I will open up the public portion of the item. And this, again, as staff noted, no public comments were received as part of the circulation, and I'll just confirm with our clerk that there's been no registrants for this item.
That's correct. There have been no public registrants for this item.
Very good. So I will formally close the public portion, and I will ask once again if there's any members who have any questions of clarification to staff or to the applicant or agent. And I see no hands, so I will ask if I can get a motion on the floor from a committee member. Michael?
Go ahead, Greg. Okay,
Miss-
I'll make a motion to approve both the severance and the variance based on the subject to the restrictions and conditions thereof.
Okay, so Michael, mover, seconder, Greg. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll have the clerk call the vote.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Virginia Kershaw, Christina Brooks, Michael Bodnar, Gregory Kempa, Dan Nemesniak. Thank you. That carried on a recorded vote of 5-0.
Thank you all very much and have a great rest of the night.
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes the items on the agenda this evening. I'll just kind of go through some housekeeping items. There's no further presentations or delegations, no items identified, no further items for consideration. We will be looking for, or I'll ask if the committee members have had a chance to review the meeting minutes from March 4th. Chris, comments?
Just one, I think it was probably autocorrect. In the roll call of March 4th, I'm listed as Crystal. Could you please change that to Christina?
Through the chair, this is Emma. I did catch that earlier today. So yes, thank you. I have changed that. Thanks,
Right.
Christina.
Yeah, it's all the autocorrect. That happens all the time.
Thank
I've
you.
usually been called Keys, but whatever.
Any other comments or corrections, omissions for the minutes from last month's meeting? Seeing none, I will call a vote. All those in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, did we get a mover and seconder?
Yes, we did. Greg is the mover and Virginia is the seconder.
Thank you.
I assumed that's how it was going to play out.
Perfect.
So we have a mover and a seconder, and we'll call the vote again. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Very good. So that concludes the entire agenda this evening. Again, any updates from staff that they are willing to share at this time, or kind of updates for what the summer months will look like in terms of meeting format? I would imagine more of the same.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's going to continue as is. Emma, do you have any additional comments in regard to that?
No, I don't. I do believe we have a heavy agenda, as Alexandra mentioned earlier. Our next agenda is going to be pretty heavy, but other than that, everything seems to be going ahead as usual.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that being said, again, thank you everyone for your time this evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next month.